record. Okay, so 6D today, and so what we're looking at in 6D is problem solving, but it's just going to be a sort of mix of everything, okay? There's going to be sine rule, there's going to be cosine rule, so we have to read the problem, we might have to draw a diagram to describe it, and then we've got to try and solve the unknowns that it's asking for. And a bit like the previous lessons today, we'll just have a little dip into the exercise, do a couple of questions, and then dedicate some time to our folio tasks. We might even chat about 7A, because that's a short exercise as well, we'll see. So we've got this text here, and it's describing the diagram alongside, okay? So we've got ship A leaves port P and travels on a bearing of 200 degrees true. All right, so what that means is from, if here's north, it's traveling at 200 degrees. So that would be 180, so it's sort of going an extra 20 degrees. So it's heading in that direction, all right? So ship A is leaving the port, here's the port. Okay, and then we've got a second ship, ship B, leaves the port at 165. And so that's not quite 180, so that means it's sort of going in this direction. So from true north, how many degrees around? All right, so from that one. After half an hour, ship A has travelled 5.2 kilometres. Okay, so this distance here is going to be 5.2. And this distance here, ship B has travelled 5.8. And the question is, how far apart are they? All right, how far apart are they? That means what's this distance here? What's this value of x? All right? And you may need to do a little bit of a process of elimination, right? If this is 165 degrees and this angle here is 200 degrees, then the interior angle here has to be 35 degrees. Okay, and so from that diagram, it's pictured for us here, you can abstract the triangle that we're trying to solve, right? And if you like, you just draw it separately, pull all the features out, all right, 35 degrees, and this is what I'm trying to solve. This is my unknown. Okay, so which rule are we going to use here? Well, we've got two sides and an interior angle, and we're trying to find the third side. So if you think for the sine rule, all right, I'll just write the sine rule out quickly. Sine A on A equals sine B on B. That is for problems involving two angles and two sides, okay? Cosine rule, problems involving three sides and one angle. So here we've got three sides, one angle. We're going to be using the cosine rule. And so I'm going to make this angle A, and this is side A. And remember, we've said side B and C. It doesn't matter what order we put those in. And when we look, if we flick back to the cosine rule, we did it last week now, we've got the two forms, right? The top form of it is for when we're solving an unknown side, and the bottom form of it is for when we're solving an unknown angle. Here we're trying to find the length of a side. So that means we're using the top form, we're using this formula, right? A squared is B squared plus C squared. Take 2BC cos A. All right, that's the form we're using. We've labelled the triangle, did I see it right? And so we just plug all the values in, okay? A corresponds with X, B corresponds with 5.8, C corresponds with 5.2, substitute it in, and the angle in between them is 35 degrees. So all we have to do is evaluate that and then perform the square root of it. So 5.8 squared plus 5.2 squared, take 2. That was 35. I've got 11.26 and then the square root of it. square root is 3.356, 4 figures, and then rounding. Okay, now we are given units as well, all right? These side lengths are given to us in kilometres, so that means this side length, which we've used kilometres to find, is also in kilometres. The two ships are 3.36 kilometres. Okay, so what do? We start with the diagram. We say, what am I trying to find? This is what I'm trying to find, okay? We've got 3 sides, 1 angle, cosine rule, all right? We're finding a side, which means we use this form of the cosine rule, label the triangle, substitute the points in, process it. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So we've got A and B are 2 locations 800 metres apart on a north-south road. All right, so let's just start with that. Here's A, here's B, and here's the road going from north to south, south to north. All right. A house has a bearing of 125 degrees true from A. All right, so we've got some house, 125 degrees. So if here's north, right, that's 90. So 125 degrees is going to be something like that, okay? The idea is not to get it exact, okay? The idea is rather what's the approximate direction it's heading in, because we're calculating unknowns, right? So it's going somewhere there. Here's the house, right? Something like that. So that's the first part. A house has a bearing of 125 degrees. So that's this angle here, 125 degrees from A and 50 degrees from B. Okay, so that means if you're going here, that's 50 degrees. And in the first sentence, we're told 800 meters apart. Okay, 800 meters apart. All right, find the distance from point A to the house and from point B to the house. Okay, so is everyone happy? Like text to diagram, that can be a little bit tricky, all right? But just focus on each piece, break it down. Okay, straight line, all right, 125 degrees to the house, 50 degrees to the house. We've got a triangle here. We're trying to find these unknowns from B to the house and from A to the house. I'll call them X and Y. They're my variables. That's what I'm trying to find the value of. Now, this 125 isn't very useful to us because it's outside of the triangle. We want the internal angles of the triangle. But this is a straight line, and we know a straight line is 180 degrees. And so this angle here has to be 55 degrees. Has to be, so that together they can add up to 180 degrees. Very good. And then if we look at we can abstract that triangle now, right? We've got 2 angles and 2 sides. 2 angles, 2 sides. Which rule do we use? The sine rule. Okay, so we're using the sine rule. That's this one. And we've got the 2 forms of the sine rule as well, right? We have A on sine A. Okay, so we can have the sides at the top or the angles at the top. And it doesn't matter, they're both the same, they're both just the reciprocal of each other. But I've said it's like there's less algebra, okay? If you're finding the side, you use the form when the side's at the top. If you're finding the angle, you use the form when the angle's at the top. Okay, we are trying to find this unknown side. Let's start with this one, okay? We'll start trying to find this one. So we're going to label our triangle, right? We've got angle A, side A, and I might rub out these points because that we might get a little bit confusing. We've got angle A, side A, angle B, side B, and angle C. We're not told that angle, but we can calculate it reasonably easily. All right, all angles in a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Here we've got 105 degrees, so this angle has to be 75. All right, all angles in a triangle add up to 180, so we can calculate that unknown angle. So we'll call that angle C, and here is side C. All right, and remember from the sine rule, sine A on A equals sine B on B equals sine C on C. All right, so let's say we're trying to solve this one. Let's start with X. So I'm going to start with A on sine A I'll write out the whole thing, equals b on sine b equals c on sine c. And if I want to use this, right, if this is side C, that's what I've labelled it as. This is my side C, and this is my angle C. Alright, well, A on sine A is equal to C on sine C, so that's fine. I'm just going to focus on that component of it. Now, A corresponds with X, and angle A corresponds with 55 degrees. C corresponds with 800, and angle C corresponds with 75. Hello. Sure. Alright, so we went A on sine A equals C on sine C. I've substituted in. We're trying to get X by itself. We're just going to multiply both sides by sine 55. Alright, so, and that's what we're going to calculate. Make sure we evaluate that. One thing to be mindful of, make sure your calculator is in degrees. And I've got 678. Alright, 4 figures, rounding to 3. Okay, so that was to find X. Now to find Y, alright, if you're getting a bit confused with the diagram, okay, because there's a lot going on there, you can draw it again and just focus on the parts you're interested in. Now we're asked to find this component. This angle is 50 degrees. And we can use either this side now, because we've found it, or the one we started with, the 800, 875. Alright? And so you can just focus on each side at a time, right? I'm going to maintain the same ones I have throughout. So that was side A, so this is side B, angle B. Alright, and then we're going side B, which corresponds with Y, on top of sine of B. Alright, so Y on top of sine 50 is equal to 800 on top of sine 75. Okay, we're trying to get Y by itself, multiply both sides by sine 50. Alright, so it's a little bit closer to the first house, right? That length is 634, that length was 678, so it's a little bit closer to the first one. Okay, so with these, the tricky part's going to be, do I use the sine rule, do I use the cosine rule? Here's a quick way to remember it. Sine rule, 2 sides, 2 angles. Alright, cosine rule, 3 sides, 1 angle. Okay? So, with the exercise, I mean, like I've said in the past, encourage you to do all of them. You know, they're all beneficial, but recognise you probably want to dedicate some time to the folio. So, up to you, do a couple of them. All right, they're all good. Let's see how we go with it.